The boarding process at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport was moving along as usual. Passengers shuffled into the cabin, stuffing carry-ons into overhead bins, exchanging quick nods with the flight attendants as they made their way to their seats. The familiar hum of an impending journey filled the air. Seated in row 12, seats A and B, Ethan and Sophia Bennett sat side by side, speaking in hushed voices. Ethan, a 40-year-old data scientist, adjusted his glasses and studied the safety card tucked into the seat pocket in front of him. Sophia, a 38-year-old environmental consultant, scrolled through her phone, glancing at texts from her sister in Denver, excited about the upcoming family celebration. Their conversation was ordinary, discussing dinner plans, debating whether they should rent a car once they arrived. But Claire Donovan, a flight attendant with over a decade of experience, was watching them. Something about the way they whispered, the way Ethan focused on that safety card, his eyes scanning every line, the way Sophia leaned in slightly, speaking close to her husband's ear. It didn't sit right with her. She swallowed, her stomach tightening as a familiar unease crept up her spine. Maybe she had seen something like this before. Maybe it was nothing, or maybe it wasn't. She remembered a training session years ago where they'd been drilled on trusting your gut. That phrase echoed in her mind now, urging her to act. She hesitated, biting the inside of her cheek, before making her way to the front of the plane. She signaled one of the gate agents. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" she said in a low voice. The agent, a young man with a headset wrapped around his ear, raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, what's up?" Belle glanced over her shoulder, subtly nodding toward Ethan and Sophia. Row 12, the couple in business casual, the man with glasses, the woman in the green jacket. Something feels off. The gate agent frowned. Off? Like how? Claire hesitated. She knew she had nothing concrete, but she had a feeling. I don't know, just the way they're whispering, how he keeps looking at the safety instructions like he's studying them too hard. I've worked flights long enough to know when something doesn't feel right. The gate agent sighed, shifting on his feet. "You want me to call security?" A flicker of doubt crossed Claire's mind, but she quickly brushed it aside. "Better safe than sorry, yeah, just to be sure." 12 minutes later, just as the last of the passengers were settling in, a sudden hush fell over the plane. 2 uniformed security officers stepped inside, their presence immediately sucking the warmth from the cabin. All eyes turned toward them. The lead officer, a broad-shouldered man with a stern expression, scanned the aisle before stopping at row 12. "Sir, ma'am," he said, his voice clipped. "I'm going to need to see your IDs." Ethan blinked, confused. "Excuse me?" "Identification, please." The officer's tone left no room for argument. Sophia frowned. "What's going on?" Ethan's voice trembled with a mix of confusion and rising anger. "We're just trying to get to Denver for a family event. Why are you singling us out?" Passengers were whispering now, heads turning, eyes locked on them. A few people instinctively reached for their phones. Ethan slowly reached for his wallet, his heart hammering against his ribs. He handed over his driver's license, exchanging a glance with Sophia, who did the same. The officer examined the IDs, then exchanged a look with his partner. "Are you two traveling alone?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yes." "Where are you headed?" Sophia folded her arms. "Denver." "What's the purpose of your trip?" Ethan exhaled sharply, a flicker of anger breaking through his confusion. "Visiting family. What is this about?" The officer ignored the question. "Did you check any luggage?" Sophia's fingers curled around the armrest. "Yes, 1 bag each." "This is ridiculous," Sophia snapped, her voice sharp enough to make nearby passengers turn. "We're being treated like criminals for no reason. Who reported us?" More whispers. More phones lifted discreetly. Across the aisle, Lucas Hayes, a 31-year-old content creator with a sharp instinct for viral moments, had already hit record. Ethan looked around, feeling a suffocating wave of humiliation crash over him. The way people were staring, studying him like he was a criminal. He had felt this before. The officer's next words nearly made his blood boil. "Do you have any explosives or dangerous materials in your possession?" Sophia gasped. "What?" Ethan's fists clenched. "Are you serious right now?" Lucas zoomed in, catching every second of the exchange. "Sir, I'm going to need you to stay calm." "I am calm," Ethan shot back, his voice tight. "The one's standing over me like I did something wrong." Sophia's voice wavered. "Why are we being questioned? We're sitting in our assigned seats, minding our business. Why are we the only ones being stopped?" The second officer cleared his throat. "A flight crew member reported suspicious behavior." Sophia stiffened. "Suspicious? What does that even mean?" Suspicious, Ethan repeated, his voice rising. We're black, that's what's suspicious, isn't it? Just say it. The cabin grew quieter, the weight of his words hanging in the air. No answer. Instead, the lead officer handed their IDs back and, without a word of apology, motioned for his partner to step back. You're clear. And just like that, they turned and left. But the damage was done. The murmurs, the judgment, the lingering stares, even though they were innocent, the stain of suspicion clung to them like an invisible mark. Claire stood a few rows away, arms crossed, watching it all unfold. Ethan met her gaze, his eyes burning with unspoken words. She looked away. As the officers exited, Sophia leaned toward Ethan, her voice a furious whisper. This isn't over. They don't get to do this to us and walk away. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. They won't. And then Lucas Hayes uploaded the video. Within 6 minutes, it had 20,000 views. By the time the pilot, Captain Michael Sullivan, was informed of the incident, it had already reached 2 million. And Claire Donovan was about to face the consequences of her actions. The flight continued to Denver, but nothing felt normal anymore. Ethan and Sophia sat in silence. The murmurs had died down, but the weight of what had just happened still clung to them. The humiliation, the stares, the way they had been singled out and questioned like criminals in front of hundreds of people. For what? Ethan rubbed his temples, trying to steady his breathing. Sophia, arms folded tightly across her chest, stared out the window, blinking rapidly. Neither of them had touched each other since the officers left. I keep replaying it, Sophia said suddenly, her voice low but sharp. The way she looked at us, that flight attendant. She didn't even blink when they dragged us through that. Ethan turned to her, his eyes dark. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she's going to regret it. A flight attendant, not Claire, approached hesitantly. Can I get you anything? She asked, her voice a little too soft, a little too careful. Sophia exhaled sharply. No. Ethan shook his head, forcing himself to remain polite. We're fine. They weren't. Not even close. Meanwhile, Claire Donovan stood in the crew service area, gripping the counter so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her heart was racing. She had watched it all unfold. The security officers questioning them, the passengers recording it, the judgmental glances thrown in her direction. She tried to convince herself she'd done the right thing, but the memory of Ethan's accusations... Had she misjudged them? No, she told herself. She was just following protocol. But the doubt lingered, sharp and unwelcome. And now her own team was looking at her differently. The other flight attendants weren't talking to her. One had given her a look of pure disapproval before walking away. Even the first officer, usually friendly, avoided eye contact. Something was wrong. Then her supervisor, Captain Michael Sullivan, walked in, and his face said everything. Claire, a word? She swallowed hard, following him into the cockpit. Sullivan closed the door. The silence felt suffocating. He pulled out his tablet, turned it toward her, and pressed play. And there it was, the video. Her decision, captured from multiple angles, a close-up of Ethan's face as he was questioned, the anger, the humiliation, Sophia's outrage, the officer's lack of a real explanation. It had over 2 million views already, and counting. Claire's stomach dropped. Sullivan's expression was unreadable as he crossed his arms. What the hell were you thinking? She blinked rapidly. I thought they were acting suspicious. His jaw tightened. Did they break any rules? No, but did you have any actual reason to believe they were a threat? I had a feeling. Sullivan cut her off. A feeling, Claire? His voice was low, sharp. This isn't the first time you've done this. Her stomach clenched. What? Sullivan exhaled through his nose, glaring at her. After we land, Corporate called me. Apparently, there have been other complaints about you making unjustified reports on black passengers. Claire's face drained of color. That's not true, she whispered. Sullivan didn't blink, isn't it? I was protecting the flight, Claire said, her voice rising defensively. You know how it is, Michael. We're trained to act on instinct. If I'd ignored it and something happened, you'd be blaming me for not speaking up. Sullivan's eyes narrowed. Don't turn this on me. You targeted them with nothing to go on, and now the whole world's watching. And she couldn't breathe. He shook his head. The company can't afford this kind of scandal, and I refuse to let my flight be the center of a racial profiling controversy. He squared his shoulders. When we land, you're off this flight, effective immediately. Her mouth opened, but no words came. This might be the end of your career, Claire, Sullivan said bluntly. I hope you understand that. He turned opened the door, and gestured for her to leave. And just like that, her entire world started crashing down. By the time the plane touched down in Denver on March 15th, 2026, the video had exploded across social media. On the jet bridge, Ethan and Sophia turned on their phones. The notifications were endless. Texts, calls, social media mentions. Sophia gasped as she read a tweet. Loudspeaker at Lucas Hayes. Racial profiling in plain sight at Horizon Airlines allowed a black couple to be publicly humiliated for no reason. See you, we won't forget. Flying while black, 100,000 retweets. Ethan's hands shook as he scrolled through the comments. Disgusting. Fire that flight attendant immediately. Imagine sitting in your seat and being treated like a terrorist for being black. At Horizon Airlines, explain yourselves. Boycott this airline until they do something. Sophia's phone rang. Her sister. She answered. Soph, oh my God, are you okay? Sophia squeezed her eyes shut. I don't know. Ethan clenched his jaw. He was about to turn off his phone when another headline popped up. Police car light breaking. Flight attendant removed from Horizon Airlines flight following racial profiling incident. His stomach twisted. He clicked on the article. The first sentence made his blood run cold. This is not the first time Claire Donovan has been accused of targeting black passengers. They're already calling it a pattern, Ethan said, showing Sophia the article. This wasn't just a one-time thing. Sophia's eyes narrowed. Good. Let the world see who she really is. Claire sat in a cold, empty office inside the airport, waiting for the airline's HR team. She had called her husband. He hadn't answered. She had checked her email. Corporate had already suspended her. She had tried to explain herself to the airline rep, but they only gave her one answer. We'll be in touch soon. She replayed the moment she'd called the gate agent, trying to pinpoint where it went wrong. Had she overreacted, or was this just the world turning against her for doing her job? Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters were waiting. She felt like she was suffocating. Her phone buzzed. A new text from her lawyer. Do not speak to anyone. This is bigger than you think. She swallowed, gripping the edge of the chair. For the first time, she understood. She wasn't just losing her job. She was losing everything. Claire Donovan was trending, but not in the way she had ever imagined. Her face, captured mid-flight, standing stiffly near row 12, watching as security officers questioned Ethan and Sophia, was now splattered across every news site, every social media platform. Police car light, flight attendant removed for racial profiling, new allegations surface. Police car light, loudspeaker, passengers speak out. Claire Donovan had a pattern of targeting black travelers. Speech balloon, she did the same to me. More victims come forward. The headlines only got worse. At home in her small Tacoma apartment, Claire sat on the couch, phone in hand, hands shaking. The television was on, tuned to CNN, where a panel was dissecting her actions like she was some kind of case study in modern racism. She flinched as a former Horizon Airlines flight attendant appeared on the screen. I worked with Claire for 7 years, the woman said. Her voice clipped. And I remember 2 separate instances where she made black passengers feel uncomfortable. She would make comments about how certain people always try to switch seats or act entitled. The anchor nodded gravely. And did you report this behavior? The woman hesitated. Then, I did, but nothing happened. HR brushed it off. Claire's breath caught. Lies, she muttered to herself, her voice trembling. They're twisting everything. She fumbled for the remote and turned off the TV. This was spiraling out of control. Her phone buzzed again. Another email. Subject: termination notice. She didn't even need to open it. She was done. Her career was over. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan and Sophia sat in a high-rise Seattle office. Across from them sat Jamal Carter, a prominent civil rights attorney, flipping through a thick folder of documents. You have a case, he said simply, looking up. A strong one. Sophia exhaled, glancing at Ethan. What would it even look like? A lawsuit? Carter nodded. A discrimination lawsuit against Horizon Airlines. The company had prior complaints about Claire Donovan and failed to act. You were publicly humiliated, detained for no reason, and now you're the face of something much bigger than you ever asked for. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. And what happens if we don't? Carter folded his hands. The airline issues a weak apology, Claire Donovan fades into obscurity, and nothing changes. Sophia's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. Nothing changes. That thought sat heavy in her chest. Tired of nothing changing, Sophia said, her voice steady but laced with pain. Every time we step into an airport, we brace ourselves. This time they went too far. Ethan let out a slow breath. What do you think, Soph? She met his eyes, her voice steady. I think we fight. The airline scrambled to contain the damage. A PR statement was issued that same night. Loudspeaker Horizon Airlines is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We do not condone racial profiling in any form, and we are launching a full investigation into the actions taken aboard Flight 517 to Denver. Police car light breaking. Claire Donovan has been officially terminated from Horizon Airlines. Police car light Claire Donovan released this statement, "I am not a racist." Claire had finally spoken publicly, but instead of apologizing, she doubled down. Loudspeaker, I was simply doing my job. Flight attendants are trained to report anything that seems unusual. I had a bad feeling and I acted accordingly. If that makes me a villain, then so be it. The backlash was immediate. On social media, Claire scrolled through the comments under her statement, her hands trembling. "Racist, bigot, you deserve this." But a few comments caught her eye. She was just doing her job. This is cancel culture gone mad. They fueled her defiance, but deep down, the doubt grew louder. Had she been wrong? The next day, Claire's husband packed a bag and left. "I can't do this, Claire," he had said, his face tight with exhaustion. "I can't be part of this mess." She had watched him walk out the door, her chest hollow. The worst part? She wasn't even sure if she regretted what she had done. Ethan and Sophia went on national television. "What happened to us wasn't just a misunderstanding," Ethan said, looking straight into the camera during an interview with ABC News. "It was a symptom of a much larger issue, one that people like us have dealt with for far too long." Sophia nodded. "We don't want an apology. We want accountability. We want to make sure this never happens to anyone else." "We're not doing this just for us," Ethan added, his voice breaking slightly. "We're doing it for every person who's ever been made to feel like they don't belong in a space they paid to be in." By the time the segment aired, their lawsuit had been officially filed. Police car light Ethan and Sophia Bennett sue Horizon Airlines for racial discrimination. Police car light. The country was watching. And this time, change felt possible. The lawsuit against Horizon Airlines had become a national headline. News anchors dissected the case on morning shows, legal experts debated the implications, social media platforms were flooded with discussions, support, outrage, and of course backlash. Ethan and Sophia were no longer just a couple on a flight to Denver. They were symbols. For some, they were heroes, proof that fighting back against racial injustice mattered. For others, they were troublemakers, people who had blown things out of proportion and ruined an innocent woman's life. And no one had more to say about that than Claire Donovan herself. Claire sat alone in her mother's small house in Oregon, her Tacoma apartment gone. The rent was too high, and without a job, she had no way to pay for it. Her husband, still gone, hadn't answered her texts in over a week. Her friends, silent. She was completely, utterly alone. And she was angry. She turned on her laptop, opened Facebook, and stared at the blinking cursor in the status box. Then she started typing. "Loudspeaker, I have spent my entire career ensuring the safety of passengers. What happened on Flight 517 was not racism, it was a professional doing her job. Now, because of a social media witch hunt, my life has been destroyed. My question is, where is my justice?" She hesitated, then clicked post. Within minutes, the comments started pouring in. "Claire, you got exactly what you deserved. You ruined your own life. Own it. Stay mad racist. Actually, she has a point. She lost everything over a misunderstanding. People like Ethan and Sophia always played the victim." The last comment made Claire's blood boil. Maybe she wasn't the villain after all. Meanwhile, Ethan and Sophia were watching their lives change in ways they never expected. They had lawyers now, PR consultants, security, because along with the support, there was hate. Sophia's work email had been flooded with messages, some supportive, some calling her every racist name in the book. Ethan's office had received threats. One night, as they sat on their couch, exhaustion weighing on both of them, Sophia sighed. "How did we get here?" she whispered. Ethan stared at the television where another news panel was discussing their case. "We got on a plane," he said bitterly. Sophia exhaled, rubbing her temples. "Do you regret it?" Ethan hesitated, then shook his head. "No, but I didn't think it would get this big." Sophia reached for his hand. "Neither did I." "We're in too deep now," Ethan said, his voice heavy. "If we stop, it's like saying what happened was okay." Sophia nodded, her eyes fierce, and it wasn't. "It'll never be okay." For the first time in weeks, they just sat there together. No cameras, no interviews, just them. And the weight of everything they had been through. Horizon Airlines was in full crisis mode. The The lawsuit had sparked an internal investigation, and what they found was worse than they expected. Loudspeaker leaked documents showed that Claire Donovan had made similar reports about black passengers in the past, at least 7 times. Loudspeaker, in one case, a black man was pulled from a flight for looking nervous. He later turned out to be an off-duty police officer. Loudspeaker, the airline had ignored every single complaint. Police car light break-in, CEO of Horizon Airlines issues apology, announces new anti-discrimination training for staff. But it wasn't enough. Ethan and Sophia's lawsuit was moving forward, and Horizon Airlines knew that for the first time they wouldn't be able to sweep this under the rug. Claire's world was getting smaller by the day. Her Facebook post had gone viral for all the wrong reasons. News outlets picked it up. Her name was trending again, but now she was no longer the disgraced flight attendant. She was the bitter woman refusing to take responsibility. Loudspeaker, fired flight attendant complains about losing everything, refuses to apologize. Loudspeaker, Claire Donovan, accountability or overreaction? Loudspeaker, America's debate on racial profiling continues. She shut her laptop with a frustrated slam. She had thought people would sympathize with her, but instead she had dug her grave even deeper. Ethan and Sophia sat in their lawyer's office, reviewing the latest developments. Jamal Carter leaned forward. The airline is considering settling. Sophia raised an eyebrow. That was fast. Carter smirked. They don't want this to go to trial. If we dig any deeper, who knows what else we'll find. Ethan glanced at Sophia. So, what do we do? Carter folded his hands. That depends. Do you want to take their money and walk away, or do you want to push this all the way? Sophia's jaw tightened. What would pushing it do? Carter's expression turned serious. It would set a precedent. It would force airlines to rethink their policies. It would make sure this doesn't happen to the next black couple just trying to take a damn flight. Ethan and Sophia exchanged a long, quiet look. Then Sophia nodded. We push. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the final ruling. In the matter of Bennett versus Horizon Airlines, the court finds in favor of the plaintiffs. A ripple of emotion swept through Ethan and Sophia as they clutched each other's hands. The lawsuit had gone all the way, and they had won. Horizon Airlines was ordered to pay damages, implement mandatory anti-discrimination training, and revised its internal policies to prevent racial profiling. It was a victory, but not just for them. It was a message, a warning to every company that had ever ignored the signs. As they walked out of the courthouse, surrounded by reporters, Sophia turned to Ethan. Did we do enough? She whispered. Ethan exhaled. I don't know. But as they looked around, they saw something they hadn't expected. People everywhere, holding signs chanting their names. Loudspeaker, justice for the Bennetts. Loudspeaker, end racial profiling. Loudspeaker, flying while black should not be a crime. They hadn't just won a lawsuit, they had started something, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Claire Donovan watched the news from her motel room. The Bennetts had won. She had lost. Not just her job, everything. The airline had cut ties completely. Her industry blacklisted her. Even the people who had once defended her had moved on. She wasn't a martyr. She wasn't even a cautionary tale. She was nothing. She shut the TV off and stared at the peeling wallpaper. The anger, the righteous indignation had faded, and all that was left was a heavy, unbearable silence. She had spent months insisting she wasn't a racist, but if that were true, why had this happened to her for the first time? She didn't have an answer, and for the first time she didn't know who she was anymore. 6 months later, Ethan and Sophia stood in an airport again. Different airline, different city, same feeling. Ethan glanced around the terminal, his muscles tense without him even realizing it. Sophia nudged him gently. We're okay. Ethan let out a slow breath. I know, but did he? The lawsuit had been won, laws had been changed, policies revised, but had the world? A flight attendant approached a young woman, warm smile. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, she said softly, I just wanted to say thank you. What you did, what you fought for, it mattered. Sophia's throat tightened. Thank you. Ethan forced a small smile. Let's hope so. They boarded the plane. As they took their seats, Ethan reached for Sophia's hand. She squeezed his fingers. Maybe nothing had changed. Maybe everything had. Either way, they were still here, still fighting, still flying, and that meant something. He had to.